If we're keeping dystopian surveillance, warrants are the only safeguard against abuse. From traffic camera to persistent tracking grid, the technological reality of ALPR systems. Automated license plate reader systems differ fundamentally from traditional traffic enforcement cameras. Where a traffic camera captures a single, isolated event, ALPR networks log every passing vehicle into a searchable database. This enables reverse location. Searches investigators can query a time and place to retrieve every license plate observed there or track a specific vehicle's movements across an entire city over weeks or months. Flock Safety exemplifies this model. Its cameras capture license plates along with vehicle make, model, and color. Flock typically retains this data for 30 days, though some jurisdictions extend that period. This information is not stored in isolation. It is accessible through a networked platform available to thousands of law enforcement agencies nationwide, creating a vast, interoperable surveillance grid. The scale of data collection is immense. In Schmidt versus Norfolk, a single plaintiff's vehicle was scanned 475 times in just 4 months. This density of observation allows authorities to reconstruct detailed patterns of life, mapping commutes, social visits, medical appointments, and religious attendance for any vehicle in the system. Systems like Flock are built to log the movements of entire populations by default. Solving crimes is the exception, not the design goal. An ACLU analysis of Flock's own data found that hit rates for vehicles actually linked to serious crimes are consistently below 1%. Vast majority of records document the entirely legal daily travel of innocent people. The constitutional trajectory from wiretaps to digital location data. The Fourth Amendment's warrant requirement emerged as a direct response to executive branch abuse, most notably through unchecked wiretapping. Congress codified this protection in the Wiretap Act, establishing that intrusive surveillance must be predicated on probable cause and particularity, judged by a neutral magistrate before the search occurs. This principle now governs digital location surveillance. In Carpenter v. United States, the Supreme Court ruled that the government's long-term acquisition of historical cell site location information constitutes a Fourth Amendment search, generally requiring a warrant. The court reinforced this in Chattree v. United States, holding that warrantless acquisition of Google geofence location data also violates the Fourth Amendment. These decisions confirm that reverse location investigations cannot evade constitutional scrutiny simply because the data is held by a third party or collected from public spaces. A doctrinal conflict now defines the legal battle over automated license plate reader systems. Automated license plate readers are the functional equivalent of a modern tracking device. The district court in Schmidt v. City of Norfolk adopted this view, granting summary judgment to the city on the basis that its 176 fixed flock cameras capture intermittent images rather than continuous movement, reasoning that a snapshot taken as a car passes a fixed point is no different from an officer glimpsing the same plate on patrol. That reasoning treats each camera as an isolated observer rather than as one node in a networked, retrievable database, and it sits uneasily next to Commonwealth v. Bell, where a Virginia trial court held that the collection and storage of license plate and location data through Flock constitutes a Fourth Amendment search requiring a warrant. The two courts examined similar technology and reached opposite conclusions about what observation means once it is recorded, indexed, and searchable months later. This conflict is actively being litigated. The plaintiffs in Schmidt have appealed to the Fourth Circuit, arguing that the system's scale, one vehicle captured 475 times in 4 months, creates an aggregated location tracking system subject to Jones and Carpenter. Grimmett v. Wichita raises a parallel challenge, arguing that city's warrantless ALPR program turns a license plate into a GPS tracker. These cases put the central question before higher courts whether constitutional doctrine will treat a dense, searchable historical record of vehicle movements as a collection of disconnected public observations or as modern location surveillance. documented harms and the failure of internal discretion. In DeKalb County, Georgia, 8 police employees were suspended after a routine audit uncovered their misuse of the Flock Safety License Plate Reader system. The department did not publicly specify the nature of the violations, filed no criminal charges, and terminated no one. This incident demonstrates that internal oversight mechanisms, which only act after a violation has occurred, are insufficient to prevent abuse. The promise of routine audits did not stop the misuse. It only identified the misuse after the fact. Documented cases of abuse are not isolated to DeKalb County. In Kansas, police reportedly used an ALPR system to target a departmental critic. Similar systems have been misused elsewhere for personal stalking, and erroneous plate reader data has produced wrongful vehicle stops and false accusations in several jurisdictions. In Denver, audit logs obtained through public records requests show that law enforcement conducted more than 1,400 searches on behalf of Immigration and Customs Enforcement since June 2024, all without a warrant and without individualized suspicion. Post hoc audits are an inadequate safeguard. They operate on the principle of punishment after a privacy violation has already happened, and punishment cannot undo the initial invasion, nor can it repair the chilling effect on free movement and association that occurs when citizens know their travel is logged into a searchable government database. The harm happens instantly and cannot be reversed. Accountability, when it comes at all, arrives late and often amounts to little. The risk is amplified by data sharing and function creep. ALPR systems are networked, allowing data collected by one agency to be accessible to countless others. This expansion of access complicates oversight and increases the potential for abuse. A query initiated in one jurisdiction can pull data from cameras across a region, often with minimal logging and no requirement to establish probable cause beforehand. The system's design encourages phishing expeditions. It turns a tool meant for locating stolen vehicles into unregulated mass surveillance infrastructure. The warrant as a non-negotiable procedural safeguard. The harms documented above happen because ALPR searches currently operate without prior judicial review. A warrant requirement closes that gap by forcing 3 safeguards onto any search that reaches into a person's history. First, probable cause requires objective evidence that a search will uncover evidence of a crime. Second, particularity compels officers to specify the person, place, or thing to be searched or seized. Third, ex ante review means a neutral magistrate approves the search before it happens based on a sworn affidavit. That affidavit is what turns a hunch into an accountable record. Anyone challenging the search later can see exactly what the officer knew and swore to at the time. Applying this framework to automated license plate reader systems clarifies the distinction between legitimate and intrusive use. A real-time hot list search for a stolen vehicle or an Amber Alert suspect resembles an officer visually scanning traffic, immediate and targeted. A retrospective ALPR query is fundamentally different. It uses a vast database of logged movements to conduct a forensic analysis, answering the question, which cars were near a crime scene over the last week? Or where has this specific vehicle traveled in the past month? This is a reverse location search, functionally equivalent to the geofence dragnet the Supreme Court scrutinized in Chattree. Such a search, which reconstructs a person's historical movements, must require a warrant. Some in law enforcement will object that a warrant requirement slows down time-sensitive investigations, especially when no suspect has yet been identified as in an active abduction. But a retrospective ALPR query by definition asks about the past. The vehicle has already passed the censor, and the data already sits in a database. A brief additional step seeking judicial sign-off does not remove real-time hot list searches from the toolkit for that abduction scenario. What the warrant requirement blocks is the after-the-fact trawl through weeks of movement data when investigators have no identified suspect at all. It does not touch the urgent real-time scan for a plate tied to an active emergency. Police investigating a specific crime with identifiable suspects could readily obtain a warrant for relevant ALPR data, just as they do for phone records or search warrants for a home. The procedural hurdle would simply prevent the kind of speculative, suspicionless trawling evidenced by the Denver Police Department's 1,400-plus searches for ICE, or the documented cases of officers targeting critics and using the systems to track people they knew personally. A warrant mandate needs complementary data controls to work. Strict retention limits would minimize the risk of historical abuse. Data could purge automatically after a short, fixed window, perhaps 72 hours, unless preserved under a warrant. Every query, whether triggered by a real-time alert or a warrant, must be logged and subject to independent audit. Without that audit trail, agencies can quietly bypass the warrant process, and persistent vehicle tracking reverts to a tool used however individual officers see fit.